There's something for every imagination at your local comic shop. Visit comicshoplocator.com to find a store near you.
Hi, I'm Travis, King of Source Point, and you're watching The Experience.
What's up, the internet? It's Kyle. How's it going? That's Dan. Or,
Wow.
Once there was a boy.
Old
Not
school.
the cut you think I'd make, huh?
I got it as soon as you started doing the humming.
Right. I can't even think of who sang that song now.
I believe it's the Crash Test Dummies.
Is it? Yeah, that sounds right. Oh, wow. I took all of my mental ability to come up with that reference, and then to not be able to come up with Crash Test Dummies makes me feel bad about myself.
Good way to start
one
the
of those
show.
weeks, though.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so my nephew was here, who's one. So we had to baby-proof the house.
Uh-huh.
Apparently baby-proofing and Kyle-proofing are the same thing. I couldn't figure out how to get into cabinets and stuff. Very frustrating. So, this is the new and revised in stores this week. We may even change the name of this show at some point. But Dan and I are going to spend more time on the books, deep diving, really getting into the weeds, or the deep end of the pool, or whatever analogy you want to make in terms of going into depth on this content.
By the way, Into the Woods and Deep End of the Pool will be new books from James Tynion very soon.
Into the Woods is already a book. It was an adaptation of...
No, you said Into the Weeds.
I understand. Then you said Into the Woods.
Oh, I meant Into the Weeds.
Oh, yeah, Into the Weeds could become from James Tynion, yes.
Yes.
So,
And Deep End of the Pool. Because those just sound like the titles that he and Matthew Rosenberg are coming up with now.
Right. The deep end of the pool in the nice house on the lake, near the ocean at the end of the lane.
What's the furthest place from here?
Right. With the me you love in the dark.
Yes.
After you promised me darkness.
I'm just going to make a comic book one day where the title covers the entire cover.
There's a book that's doing that with 3 words. But I want you to do one with like 800 words just on the title, on the cover. And you have to read every word because they're important to the story.
Uh-huh.
The front is just the prose introduction to the story on the inside.
And the covers, even though all the words, it's the main character trying to get through them. So the first one, he's just kind of looking through, and he's starting to climb through, and he's like almost got himself out. And the final one, he's standing in front going, I have no idea what the story's going to be, but those are the covers.
Yeah. Joel says we only find them when they're dead does that. Not entirely, but a little bit. There's a book called Cat Shit 1. That every book says Cat Shit 1, like in big, bold letters on the cover. So.
That's like Ready Player One. The cover is just the title.
Yes, very much so, actually.
Yeah.
So let's, so part of the new deal is that Dan and I are going to have read as much of this as possible. There are some books on this week's list that I didn't quite get to. I ran out of some time. Mm-hmm. I'm sure Dan has the same. And there will always be books we want to talk about that we just weren't able to get readers of and stuff ahead of time. So we're going to do our best.
Right. And publishers, if you're listening, sending us PDFs of books, that's a good thing.
Yeah. or physical copies if you want to do it that way.
Yep.
I like getting mail.
Me too.
So, all right, let's start. We're going to start. Dan and I talked about this one a little bit before the show started because we weren't sure what this was going to be. But this is Batman: The Long Halloween Special from DC Comics. And this is a new story from the classic, in the universe of the classic Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale, Batman: Long Halloween. And
which came out 25 years ago.
I was 8.
I was not.
Yeah, I didn't read it until much later, but the interesting thing about this is it comes out just in time for Halloween. And it is part of the celebration of the 25th anniversary of the original series. This story is it's a new mystery that takes place in the same time frame as the original. So
and it's Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, which they haven't worked together in quite some time, have they?
No, I think since this.
No, they were doing the Marvel color books for a while there. Hulk gray,
yeah, that's right.
Daredevil yellow, Spider-Man blue. But
that's right.
I actually don't remember having seen Tim Sale in a while.
Maybe not. I don't know. I don't. I don't see anything recent from him out there. But like I said, it's this book could easily insert into the original run.
Yeah.
So just imagine adding a book on at the end or in the middle somewhere. I'm not entirely sure where it would fit, but it would fit.
Right. And for anybody who's a Long Halloween fan or not, Thursday's Dan Wickline show is actually going to be about the Long Halloween. We're going to talk about the original comic series. We're going to talk about the animated movie, the 2-part animated movie that just came out. And also there are hints that some of the storyline from the Long Halloween is going to play into Matt Reeves' new Batman movie, The Batman. So it's going to be a fun show on Thursday, and it's going to be Halloween soon, so it seemed like the right time to talk about Batman: The Long Halloween.
Yes. There's another one. There's another book. We'll go to another book that we talked about a little bit last week, but neither of us have had a chance to dig into yet, which is Gunslinger Spawn #1.
Mm-hmm.
This book was supposed to come out last week, but due to printing constraints and supply chain issues and all kinds of other things, Image asked retailers to hold it. Excuse me. And this is the launch of the second new monthly Spawn title. So I wanted to make sure I had those numbers right. This is Gunslinger Spawn getting pulled into the modern time.
Right.
When he's used to the Old West. Trades in his horse for a motorcycle, but doesn't know anything about gasoline. So he's just pushing his motorcycle around, trying to figure out why his iron horse doesn't work.
I'd want to know why he went with that choice of a hat.
He's inspired by Pharrell Williams.
Seems bigger than Pharrell's.
Maybe.
Think he's compensating?
He's Spawn. I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I bet he used it to store stuff. I bet it's like half Abe Lincoln, half stylish choice. You know, he's got like his correspondence in it.
I've just never seen a stovepipe cowboy hat before. That's kind of strange.
No, it's not a stovepipe cowboy hat. It's the Arby's hat.
Oh, that's very different.
Right. He just keeps a beef and cheddar up there at all times, just in case.
Oh, now I'm hungry, man.
But not for Arby's.
I like Arby's. Just one of their giant roast beefs. Just don't put any lettuce or anything on, just that, and cover it in Arby's sauce. That's good. That's good stuff. Dude, you ate Taco Bell earlier. You don't get to judge
cheese
me.
Quesadillas.
You had Taco Bell.
but it's cheese quesadillas.
It's still Taco Bell.
Also, it's one of the few places that could deliver in under an hour. Arby's was not one of the Arby's, shockingly, was not one of the places that could deliver in under an hour, and the Arby's is closer than the Taco Bell.
Quickly delivered crap is still crap.
Right, but when your only rule is quickly delivered, you're like, I need to eat, and I have a bunch of work to do. What can be here now? Really? The Arby's that I could walk to the end of the street and get is going to take an hour? Or the Taco Bell could be here in 15 minutes. All right.
That's because it's not actually food.
I didn't say it was. It could have been Soylent Green. If it had been here in 15 minutes, I'd ordered it.
Soylent Green would be more healthy for you than Taco Bell.
I never argued that point.
Okay.
All right, let's oops, that was not what I want to click on. This is what I want to click on. Okay. So let's get into some books here that we maybe have a little more in-depth knowledge on. Like Deep Target, #1 from DC Comics.
Yeah. I haven't had a chance to read this one yet, but the reason I wanted to bring it up is because what a lot of people don't realize is that Aquaman and Green Arrow debuted in the same issue. More Fun Comics, I think it was number, I want to say 3, but I might be wrong on the number. But the two of them, so having them together in a series goes along with the fact this is their 80th anniversary. And that's what they're doing here. To celebrate the 80th anniversary of Aquaman and Green Arrow, they're going up against this shadowy organization known as Scorpio. And we've seen them before, but they're much bigger now. And what they do is they loot the past for artifacts and treasures. Then somehow they alter the time. And in doing so, they altered the timeline. And now Aquaman and Green Arrow have to fix it. So this is going to be a fun story. It's by Brandon Thomas and Ronan Claquette. And I again, it's neat to see these two characters together because I don't remember them interacting that much. Yes, they've been in the Justice League, but they're usually like on the opposite ends of the spectrum. And plus, it's a 7-issue limited series, which seems like an odd number.
Right. So from a story point, this is essentially a Freaky Friday story. Their consciousnesses get flipped. You have Aquaman, you have Green Arrow, and there's this scientist who's running these experiments. And the results of the experiment is that the consciousnesses of these two characters get flipped, and they're having to use the other's role and the other's powers when they're not used to it to try and combat this scientist who has caused this and get it fixed. One of the reviews for this book that I read was pretty funny. A weird, fun start to a story about two blonde dudes with facial hair teaming up because they don't have solo books to capitalize off their 80th anniversary. But you're right. These guys have been paired together since they first were created. They did both appear in the same first issue. Their origins happened about the same time. They've both been worked on by some of the biggest legends that DC's ever had. They have been paired for a long time, and to put them into a Freaky Friday story is a great way to really investigate their powers. Yeah.
There's a couple covers for this. This is the main cover, but the other two, it's interesting that every time they draw each cover has a different look for Aquaman. You know, a different look to his costume, and I just think that's kind of funny.
They each have different Green Arrows too. I mean, Green Arrow's costume is
pretty
relatively
similar.
the same across all time, but they are slightly different Green Arrow costumes as well.
Yeah, but the Aquaman costume is very drastically different.
Yeah, it's definitely the different iterations of that, and those variants are by Ivan Rice and In-hyuk Lee.
Yep. So I'm going to be picking this up. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Okay. This is Merlin and Hector #1 from Red 5 Comics. This is a sword and sorcery story, but it takes place prior to the King Arthur Camelot story. Before like things like Excalibur were a thing. And it's a young Merlin who is relatively unexceptional, stuck on a farm, kind of like he's a swine herder. But he is also lucky in a weird way. His farm gets attacked by what do I want to call them? I'm gonna go ahead and go with monsters, Dan.
Okay.
They don't really look like monsters, though, like in the traditional sense. They are very Arthurian. Like they're mythological being monsters. They're not dragons and some of the other things you think about when you think about this kind of Arthurian legend.
Yeah.
But they're of that ilk. And he goes around trying to kind of tell people, hey, this is what happened. This is what happened. I need help. And no one believes him except for a thief named Hector. And when these attacks start to increase, it falls to these two dudes to save the village who no one would choose. It starts off a little boy who cried wolf and then turns into a different thing entirely. Where it's, oh, you weren't crying wolf. You were right. We just didn't see you. You know what it reminds me of a lot? Have you seen the commercials with Shaq for the General?
Yes.
Where he's like out in the woods and here are the NBA guys. Shaq, you remember how we left you out here because you said the General was good and we were wrong? It's kind of that. It's, all right, you were right. We're sorry. And then the story picks up from there. Red 5 Comics is a great small publisher out of Texas. If you're interested in this, contact Jen King. I'm sure she has copies. And Josh Starnes, who is the publisher of Red 5, will probably be on her show in the next few days talking about this book.
Who's the cover artist on this? Because it looks like a cross between P. Craig Russell and Mike Mignola.
It says Jock, but not like J-O-C-K. It's just J-O-K.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't actually know either of these creators. Rodolfo Santullo or Jock. But again, not the Jock that everybody knows from Batman. Like,
yeah, it's a real good cover. It'll be interesting to see what the interiors are like.
Yeah, they look really cool. I didn't get a full issue. I got like the first 2 pages, but that was enough for me to know that I'm in on this book.
Okay.
From Valiant, Harbinger #1.
I got to enjoy this one this morning. This is really good. I've been a big Valiant fan, but I haven't been a huge fan of Harbinger. It's pretty convoluted. It at times reminds me of the old Cyforce from Marvel's New Universe. But this is a new take on it with Jackson Lansing, Colin Kelly, and Robbie Rodriguez. And it's kind of changing things up where Harbinger wasn't really a team. There was the Renegades led by Peter Stanchik, who may be the most powerful telepath on the planet since Toyo Harada is supposed to be dead. And he kind of wakes up without his memory, but he knows he has powers. He knows certain things. He has his knowledge, but not his memories. So he's trying to piece all this together in a very different world, a world where he is feared as one of the most deadly things on the planet. As soon as he is noticed, the police show up and come to get him. It is a very interesting start to a new Harbinger series. You don't get the other characters that are normally in the book. It's focusing specifically on Peter. And in a sense, he is becoming the Harbinger. it's almost like it's no longer, well, they never called themselves, but they never called themselves the Harbingers. That was the program that they had gone through. They called themselves the Renegades, but at this point, he is becoming the Harbinger. So it's a good start. I like the art on it a lot, and I feel I need to say that since I've kind of downed the art on Ninjak for a while. So it's a good pickup. If you're looking if you like the Valiant universe, grab it, and or if you want to read superhero stuff that's outside of the big two because you don't want the continuity problems. Like I said, I haven't been a big follower of Harbinger, so I kind of feared I might needed a lot of backstory and be confusing. It's not. Jackson Lansing does a really good job of kind of giving you the background you need to follow Peter, and as he's trying to figure things out, it's helping us come along with him. So it's a good pickup. I really liked it.
All right, we'll do this is Cross to Bear from Aftershock Comics. This is a time travel book, but not exactly a time travel book. So essentially, the premise of this book is that there are a number of things that are out of continuity in terms of time. This one starts with Jack the Ripper was never caught because no one was looking for him in the Old West. But there was this organization called the Order that were. And the premise of the Order is that they are descendants of the people who fought the Crusades. And that they are sworn to defend the world against like things that are unnatural to it. And so they have a very sort of moving for almost religious kind of affinity or affliction with to try and do these jobs. Like it's almost like they feel like it's bigger than themselves. It's bigger than their calling. So they'll stop pretty much at nothing to get the job done, and they answer to no one. So what you do is you find yourself with these descendants of these ancient knights in the Old West hunting Jack the Ripper. Very interesting story. Aftershock books tend to take a story you'll recognize and turn it on its ear a little.
Mm-hmm.
And this is certainly in that vein.
Cool.
So I will note that English is not the first language of the writer. And there may be being pointed out during the previous show, and I noticed it too and didn't think much of it. If you see a word that's maybe a little misspelled, try not to be too harsh of a critic. Take it for what it's supposed to mean and not what it actually means. I hate to have to say that about a book from a company like Aftershock, but it's something that's worth noting.
It's okay. There's one of the books on the list I noticed had 2 massive typos.
In the title?
No, I mean in the book.
Oh, no.
So that's not that one. I'm bigger company. So it's nobody's perfect.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. It's there's one part where he's going, "Oh no, my peers are all dead," but he spelled them like P-E-I-R-S. So she said he lost a bunch of boat docks as opposed to friends. So all right. Let's move on to Barbarella number 4.
This is a really interesting series they got going on here. I've read a few of the other ones and liked them well enough, but this really kind of has the feel. Sarah Hoyt is doing a really good job here. It really feels like a Barbarella story to me. It's got that sci-fi feel. It's got I don't want to say like a love theme undertone to it. I mean, Barbarella has always been about love and, caring about it and stuff like that. There's a character in it now that she's with that's very reminiscent of John Law's character from the Barbarella movie. But the thing that stood out to me the most on this issue is the absolute gorgeous art by Matabek Musabekov. I mean, I've seen him in some of his other work, but it looks like he's really hitting his stride here. I read the first issue. I haven't read the last couple, and I've read this one. I wasn't lost at all. I didn't need really a checkup. I know that they're searching for a particular villain who has the same look as Barbarella does. They go to a planet called Automata, which is filled with cyborgs and
Automata.
Automata, okay, Automata, sure.
Automata, because automaton.
Yes,
is a robot.
Yes, but again, I mean, there's some new characters to meet, stuff like that. But overall, it's just feels like a Barbarella story with the art that's on that level too. With, the French editions and stuff like that. So, yeah, I thought this was great. I picked it as a little hesitant because I had the option to read it, and just really liked it a lot.
Yeah, no. So the thing I will say is that I have been reading it since issue 1. This is one that I issue 1 hooked me real hard. And so I will say this, that the way the art goes, and Dan mentions that it feels like it's a different place than it was in issue 1. For me, every issue, it's felt like Matabek Musabekov has found another gear. Like he is understanding the character more, understanding the story even a little further, and bringing, understanding might not be the right word, but interpreting the story more. And so the art is carrying more of the weight, I think. The first issue, the writing had to carry most of the weight of the storytelling, and that relationship is balancing and evening out, if not flipping towards the art. And as this series continues, I don't know how many they're supposed to be doing. I know there's at least 6. I would like to see it continue that way till more visually representative of what the universe looks and feels like.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a really good book.
So, all right, let's do this, Dan. Feels like now that we're diving deeper, we're going a lot faster, but it's that time for us to take a quick break. We'll be back in about 2 minutes here on The Experience.
To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. Every variation of To Be Continued is a promise of adventure, a promise of excitement, a promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds. A promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey, and behind every page there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop today. Visit comicshoplocator.com today.
Hey, I'm Garrett Gunn. You might know me from Good Boy, Warcorns, Franklin and Ghost, and you're watching The Experience.
What's up, the internet? I'm Kyle. That's by the Crash Test Dummies, or the sound you make when you eat pancakes. This is in stores this week, and I played that last commercial, the Welcome to Oxeye Media commercial, because featured prominently in it is Joshua Werner. Josh Werner has a book out this week that we're going to talk about in a minute. But in the meantime, I want to mention this weekend, if you're in the northern Michigan region of the country, is Cherry Capital Comic-Con, wherein they will be naming the Gary Reed Independent Creator of the Year Award. The nominees for the Gary Reed Independent Creator of the Year Award are all friends of The Experience. Dr. Christy Blanche, who you may know from What We Do in the Comic Shop, a show that was here on The Experience for a while, and who has been here for many interviews. Garrett Gunn, who has also been here for many interviews. Drina Joe, who has been on the network several times talking about her work as an editor, and Josh Werner, who was on with Miss Jen yesterday for Talking Shop, talking about his book that's out this week. We will be streaming the Gary Reed Independent Creator of the Year Awards live here on The Experience when they are named live from Cherry Capital Comic-Con. For those of you who aren't aware of who Gary Reed is, I would say Google him. But companies like Aftershock, Scout, SourcePoint, Kitchen Sink. What other companies are there that can trace their origins to Gary Reed directly? Most of them?
Yeah.
Well, Caliber, absolutely. But other than Caliber, I was going to say. But, I mean, most comic book companies have someone who is a Gary Reed disciple in them. And that is a great tribute to somebody. Especially somebody who did so much to bring the industry along with them. The Gary Reed Independent Creator of the Year Award is given to the independent creator who most exemplifies Gary's traits in terms of helping bring others along and create books with as many people as possible. So, nominee for the Gary Reed Award, Josh Werner, has a book out called The Winchester Mystery House. Dan,
you're the title.
Well, but Dan, you're from California.
Yes.
Have you ever been to the Winchester Mystery House?
I have not, for one very odd reason. There's so much built onto it. It's a very narrow hallways and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I'm a big guy.
So you guys, if you watch the show, you know that I'm a big Edgar Allan Poe fan. When I was in Baltimore, I went to Poe House. I couldn't go up to Poe's bedroom because I didn't fit up the stairs. So I totally understand, but you know about the Winchester Mystery House, Dan.
Yes.
I did not until Josh started talking to me about this book.
Oh,
this is officially licensed by the Winchester Mystery House folks. Josh wrote and drew the book, did it all himself. With their help. And I'm going to read the solicitation on this one. Normally, that's not what we're going to be doing, but I'm going to do it on this one because I don't know enough about the Winchester Mystery House, and I've read this book in several different iterations, so I don't know what the final edits look like. So, thought to be one of the most haunted places in the world, the Winchester Mystery House is much more than an architectural wonder. It's a labyrinth full of secrets. Come step inside and hear the house's whispers. Inspired by true events, this masterfully crafted horror tale written by Joshua Werner is beautifully illustrated. Oh, by Dustin Irvin. I thought he did the art too. Josh is an artist, not a writer, primarily. I didn't know Dustin had taken over. Takes you into the non-stop construction of the house that spirits built and his brilliant and mysterious owner, Sarah Winchester. Chapter 1, The Heart of the House. The year is 1886, and after suffering the loss of both her only child and husband, Sarah Winchester has come to California, bringing with her a massive inherited wealth. After buying a small farmhouse on a large plot of land, Sarah sets to work expanding it like a woman possessed. The construction crew's first task will be to build a room that will later become legendary. But something is waking up. Josh talks about how when he first they found out that the Winchester people were looking to tell this story, or were looking to have a story told about the house, like in comic book form, something like, or in a novel or something. And he approached them with the pitch that it's Sarah Winchester isn't as crazy as everybody thinks she is. She's actually a genius. And she's using the house as a way to do battle with demons and spirits and keep them trapped. So staircases to nowhere are just a dead end to trap a ghost or to trap a demon. Rooms that are built oddly are such for a reason. And, you know, to really use the fact that the house is, from what I understand, really throws people off balance when they go into it. There are rooms that just mess with your brain. And to use that as, oh, no, this was intentional. And to tell the story of Sarah Winchester from more of a position of empowerment that is so often done in the other stories that are told and the other lore that exists. So what lore do you know about it, Dan, about the Winchester Mystery House? Just from...
I know that referring to it as an architectural wonder only works if the architectural firm is Salvador Dali and M.C. Escher.
That seems right.
Yeah. I mean, from what I know of it, I don't know much of the lore, but I do know that it is one of the oddest houses ever built. They just kept adding and adding, and, you know, tiny rooms, tiny hallways, stairs that go to nowhere, rooms that, yeah, I mean, just, I believe there's a room that has no doors. I mean, it's just a bizarre thing. And
well, I imagine that it's a little like the House on the Rock.
A little bit.
In that it doesn't seem to make any sense why someone would do this.
Yes, absolutely.
And the House on the Rock did for me what Josh claims Winchester Mystery House does for a lot of people, which is just throw off their cerebrum. Their brain doesn't sit right when they're in there. And that's definitely what the House on the Rock did for me, both before I had read American Gods and after. So it's something to think about for sure. This book is, I'm very excited for it. There was a beautiful New York Comic-Con variant that I picked up. Make sure you check this one out.
All right.
Red Sonja, Invincible Red Sonja number 5, Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor.
I have a lot of good to say about this book and a little bad.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I think Jimmy and Amanda's writing on this book is excellent. It really feels like a Howard wrote these, right? Robert E. Howard?
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like they're straight out of the Conan stories. You know, it's that style of writing. It has the dark, twisted influence of H.P. Lovecraft. It has the magical elements. Sonja in this is an absolute badass. She is gotten into this horrible situation where she is cursed. She can't die, and she is forced to do the bidding of this sorcerer who is basically using her as a one-man army to stop two opposing forces that are both trying to take him down. And he is basically throwing her out there. She gets wounded and it hurts, but she heals from it immediately. So it's not like she can't be hurt. She's getting hurt and feeling it. So she's pissed at being A, going through that, B, the fact that, you know, she's being controlled. But there's also a lot more going on. We find out that she's got a bounty on her head from an ex-friend and potential lover. There's a bounty out that she collects for a stolen crown, which is what sends the sorcerer insane in the first place. There's a dead king. I mean, it is just a really fun, deep story. And it does feel like you're reading a Howard story. So Jimmy and Amanda did have really gotten this right. It's been a couple issues since I read it. So I read like the first two, skipped two, and now I'm back to it. And you don't need to read the other four. You can start here. This is the penultimate episode, though. So there's one more after this, at least in this first story arc. And I don't know if they're going to do more after that or not. But that's great. The covers are great. Moritat's art is really good until he gets later in the book, and it starts feeling like he had to rush through some of the pages. Some of the art doesn't seem quite as finished as it does in the earlier stages. So that's my only knock on the book, is that in the later pages, some of the art looks rushed or unfinished. But other than that, this is a really cool Red Sonja story that really does feel like it's straight out of a Howard book, even though this character was never written by Howard.
It's true.
You know, she's a variation on a character called Sonja from the books, and then Roy Thomas kind of created Red Sonja in the Conan comics, and that's why she's not actually part of the Howard estate. That's why Red Sonja and Conan don't travel together, basically. So when one company gets the license, they don't get the other. This is actually owned by Luke Lieberman, the son of Howard's lawyer.
I don't know exactly. I know that the character has changed hands several times. That's why Marvel, Dynamite, Marvel, Dark Horse, Marvel, like it bounces kind of a lot. It's been at Dynamite for a while now. I'm talking about Sonja.
Yeah.
Conan has been bounced around just as much over the years.
Right.
That is why is that none of the publishing companies actually own the rights to these books. So everything you see, Sonja or Conan, is licensed.
Right. Well, Conan is currently at Marvel. I loved the run they did at Dark Horse with Kurt Busiek and Carrie Nord. And they were just adapting the actual Howard stories. So, like I said, I'm a sucker for the Howard stories, and this feels like Jimmy and Amanda are channeling Robert E. Howard here.
Yeah. So, we will jump to, this is Popstar Assassin. I think we talked about this book a little bit last week.
Yeah.
I've read it now, and it's still coming out this week. This is one of those that kind of hit a couple of different release weeks for whatever reason. So have you seen the movie Bubba Hotep?
Yes. Of course.
This is that if you cranked it to 11, broke the knob off, and added more guns. The main character is this guy you see here on the cover in the Elvis costume. His name's Bruce. He is just everything you would imagine Elvis impersonator in the 80s to have been. A coke addict, a small-time mobster, all of this kind of stuff. And he finds himself between a rock and a bullet place. And it turns into this revenge story where he is kind of your protagonist, but you kind of hate him.
Okay.
But you root for him too, because everybody else is so awful. You kind of root for him too. And so it definitely has a Bubba Hotep or a almost a Once Upon a Time in Las Vegas feeling. It feels like it's something Bukowski would have been involved in. Like there's just a lot of, okay, I see your influence there kind of moment in this book. So it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's everything that I can get excited for, because this book, pardon my French, this shit be crazy. So, Pop Star Assassin, worth picking up and taking a look at.
All right.
All right, let's jump over. We have a number 1 that's left. It's going to be a big book, but we'll jump over to a number 5, which is to say Black Hammer Reborn, number 5 from Dark Horse Comics.
This, of course, is Jeff Lemire and Malachi Ward. Malachi Ward is a great name, by the way.
He should definitely be a hero in something like Malachi Ward, also known as Bear.
The story here, by the way, this is the book that had the 2 glaring typos.
Oh, no.
Which surprises me because it's, Dark Horse, big company, editorial staffs, all of that stuff. You almost expect it from smaller companies because they're still growing and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm going to talk about this a little backwards. The solicitation actually talks about there being a special 1-page Inspector and Sector backup story by Rich Tommaso. It's a 2-page story.
Front and back?
No. It just, in the PDF they were side by,
That's fair.
Yeah. But so that was the thing is one, and I like that. That's kind of cool. I'm looking for, I want to see what's going to happen with Inspector in Sector, who's basically an insect detective. But the Black Hammer story is pretty interesting in that you have, and a lot of companies or a lot of books are doing this right now, you have 2 versions of the city about to collide with each other. So you have like this alternate version of Spiral City, but it's like right on top and they're getting closer. And she's trying to figure out why. And the world, the city she's from, all of her allies are gone. Sherlock Frankenstein's gone. All these other characters are gone that she's used to working with. And she's made a huge mistake and she's kind of grieving and guilty about that. And she finds this little signal beacon in her daughter's backpack that has the symbol of the Skulldigger. That's his name? Yeah, Skulldigger. And she's trying to figure out how all this is working. And she realizes that the signal's actually coming from the other city. And she has to go there to find Skulldigger, who is a vigilante and kind of like the Punisher in this universe. And it's an interesting setup, but it's also somewhat confusing. Where the other couple books I said I hadn't read, I wasn't current, and I read, this one doesn't really give you a lot of, doesn't catch you up very quickly. But there's a lot going on, and I'm really curious to see what's going to happen when these 2 cities collide. And also in the other city, all the allies that she lost in her city seem to be alive, well, and looking for her. As in hunting her. So it's a pretty good setup issue, but it's an odd jumping in point. So if you're following this, definitely pick it up. If you're not, you might want to look for some previous issues, but there is definitely some fun stuff going on here.
Yeah. All right. We have 1 book left, but before we get to that, I want to give Dan a minute to talk about the tomorrow and Thursday's episodes of the Dan Wickline Show.
Okay. Tomorrow, we are going to tackle the character from Marvel Comics, Eros, or Star Fox, depending on how you know him, the Eternal from Titan and brother of Thanos. And you might be aware that his character is becoming important suddenly. And you might be aware of that because right after the world premiere, somebody from Variety decided to tweet out who was cast as the character. And it even got picked up by Stephen Colbert talking about it on his show. So if you don't know yet, I'm not going to say, but if you do and you want to know more about Star Fox, join me tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. And on Thursday, we are going to talk about Batman the Long Halloween. We're going to discuss the comics, the 2-part animated series, and the upcoming Batman movie, which may be influenced by that. So that's on Thursday.
Go to your comic shop tomorrow, buy the Long Halloween special that we talked about earlier. Read it before Dan's show Thursday, then turn in Thursday. And I would go ahead and guess that Dan may have information that relates to all of it because it's all related.
Everything's connected.
Right. Then next week on the Dan Wickline show, I can tell you because Dan and I have to work these out yet, but we are hoping to have 2 creators who are currently running Kickstarters. One, which is funded 500+%, called Bigfoot Knows Karate, which features a character that I am super jazzed about, Kung Fu Thulu.
I'm in.
Yep. As well as from Freestyle Comics, Mike Watson, who has a book out right now on Kickstarter called Emerald Guardian. So hopefully we'll get to talk to both of those guys next week on the Dan Wickline show.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Later coming up this week here on The Experience, tomorrow, obviously we have the Dan Wickline show, and then we have Comics Collectibles with Rex and the Not Nicks, featuring a bunch of people not named Nick, including special guest, our weekly special guest, AR from AR Comics. On Friday or on Thursday, we'll have again Dan. Then What's in the Box with Miss Jen, and Kicking It with Henri, which is our new late night show. It runs 10 to midnight Eastern, or if you're on the West Coast, 7 to 9. And then on Friday, we will have the Original Art Experience with Nick, and Friday Night Live with Nancy McCann from Comics Unlimited in Cleveland, Tennessee. You may see me live Saturday and Sunday from Cherry Capital Comic Con as I host panels with Bill Morrison of Bongo Comics and Steve Levine, who was one of the OGs at Mirage with Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. Then tune in Sunday for the Fat Jacks Comic Crypt Latchkey Manifesto, and come back Monday for all the craziness on Monday. Okay. I think I stalled long enough that we can bring up this last book.
All right.
It's a book that's related to a book with a long title, and this book has a shorter title.
Not by much, though.
No. This is the comic book adaptation of Slaughterhouse-5. Oh, wait. No, it's not.
No. You know what's funny is I read this and didn't realize it was tied to Something's Killing the Children.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I saw the mask and I went, wait, I've seen that before.
Yes, this is House of Slaughter. From Boom Studios. Dan, what did you think of this one? Having not read Something is Killing the Children.
Yeah. It felt a little bit to me like Umbrella Academy. But the ending, the last line, kind of brought me back. It's kind of funny. I was reading the book thinking, this is cool, but there's nothing about it that's really getting my attention. And then the very last panel just brought me back like, oh God, now I want to read what number 2 is going to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is what Something is Killing the Children does really well. So having read Something is Killing the Children, I guess having the context really helps with this. You don't need it because of what Dan just said. Like, this book can stand up on its own, and it can help you can get where you're going. Like, it doesn't you don't need the driveway to get where you're going here on this book. But for me, having read it, is this gives you some background into Aaron Slaughter and Erica from Something is Killing the Children's background. It kind of gives you a little bit more of that, okay, why are they the way they are? You know, the salt and pepper of the nuance of their lives. And that was interesting to me because having read Something is Killing the Children, but read it in trade paperback form and having, consumed it quickly, that nuance, or a lot of the nuance that people I know who read it issue by issue recognized, I had missed. So this gives you more background and more story. And it kind of reminds me of Nick Spencer's Morning Glories, Assassination Classroom, Umbrella Academy, there's a bunch of other stuff where it kind of is like your screwed up childhood tells you a lot about who you are as an adult, and this story tells you a lot about your screwed up childhood.
I do find it interesting that we get through the entire book, and you might be able to answer this because of you having read the other series, but he's talking about hunting monsters. And unless he means that monsters are just normal people that are going to do bad things, we don't see any monsters in the entire book.
That's one of those things that I don't want to... I'm worried that elaborating on that point would spoil a lot for a lot of things. Because I read that too, and I noticed that, and I know what it means in Something is Killing the Children.
Mm-hmm.
But without spoiling anything for anyone, the word monster has so many meanings.
That's what I was taking it as. Since we didn't actually see a physical monster, I got a feeling that it's more of a metaphor.
But it could also be a little bit of yours, them, and ours.
Mm-hmm.
Yours, theirs, and ours. I mean, where it means that at one point, and it means something else at another point, and it means something else at another point, and that would not shock me at all with Tinian's writing. So,
okay,
that's kind of how I feel on this one. It's a very interesting read if you read Something is Killing the Children. So
it's a pretty interesting read if you haven't.
Right.
So don't let this stop you if you haven't read. Maybe this will make you go back and read Something's Killing the Children, but you can absolutely pick this up and enjoy it without having read Something's Killing the Children.
Right. And I will also say this, don't try and collect the covers on this one. There are hundreds. Because so many stores did exclusives and stuff. If you see one you like, make sure you get that one and go from there. So, for Dan, I've been Kyle. This has been the new Revamped in stores this week. We will see you all later in the week, both Dan and I. Mm-hmm. It's been good talking to you. Feels weird being done already, doesn't it, Dan?
It does, but I can smell the pizza, and I'm ready.
So, all right. We will see everybody next time. Stay tuned for other great stuff on the experience. Bye, guys.
Good night, everybody.